here already. Like, I think this year we should have been well into the mid 500 range, 500K range, if not 1 million. And for that delay, I would largely say it's a holdover from all of the fallout from all the fraudulent activities that have been undertaken by and large, the crypto ecosystem. So we're sort of being punished for what they've done. And this is the result. Like, Bitcoin price is muted. And even though a lot of people are euphoric right now that we're getting close to 100, I think we should have been well over 100 already. And I think we'll see it rapidly accelerate. So there's this saying that Bitcoin is like a beach ball being held underwater. And I think that's all the more true right now. Like, even this moment as we're speaking, it is being held underwater by these forces still. So once it starts to rise up, it'll start to go up really fast, and most people won't expect what dies. So it's not so much that I think we're going to be talking about multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin. If you priced it in terms of fiat, yes. But I think once you cross the few million mark, maybe in the 5 million range, I think that's when people stop accepting fiat currencies and they just accept sats. And that just becomes the new norm. So you'll never actually get to the point where, a Bitcoin is worth $1 trillion. We're going to switch completely off the fiat standard and onto the Bitcoin standard completely by that point. And I think the other part is people have grown accustomed to these large numbers when talking about things like GDP and debt, right? It's always in the billions and trillions. But most people don't really realize, especially normal people, that these numbers are absolutely ridiculous. Like, what is $1 trillion? So I've always maintained a view that Bitcoin is exponential in nature, because adoption of technology is typically exponential, and money is even more foundational to civilization than basic things like a cell phone, right? So the adoption curve definitely should be approaching exponential. Now, exponential curves are very steep. So when you're predicting when it's going to happen, you think it's 5-10 years out, but because of that steepness of the curve, it's really difficult to say. Like, I think it's honestly going to be next year, at the most the next year after that. So within 2 years, we'll start seeing that very steep exponential curve. And would you want the beaver pelts if you don't need them? Would you take them as money? Probably not, right? So inferior monies just kind of disappear over time and stop being money, and they become either ornamental or collectibles or anything like that. So it reverts back to a more proto money. And then the other part is, I guess, can the dollar fail? And I believe that is a part of this equation, because if you look at the debt right now, it's at 36 trillion, growing by $1 trillion a year. And that's going to accelerate because of the magic of compound interest. There's a school of thinking out there that the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix this by cutting spending. But you can cut all the spending you want, but that debt is still going to compound, that Lama's had in her bill to create that reserve. So I think definitely we're reaching the end of 2024 now, but 2025 is going to be the year of war to accumulate Bitcoin. Everyone's going to be trying to get it. You have nation states that are mining it and kept quiet a very long time and not told anybody, because of course they want the advantage. But you're going to see more of that. More nation states just mining with excess energy that they have that would otherwise, turn to mush and be wasted. And you're going to have countries printing their own currency to buy it, I believe, because they see that there's no downside to it, right? You're either, so long as anybody can mine Bitcoin and transact in Bitcoin.
You have some interesting ideas about where this could go with MicroStrategy in particular. And you recently tweeted that you thought it might end up being a nation state of its own one day.
Well, that's a little joke, I guess, but now it's looking more and more likely. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, eventually space travel could be largely done by private companies like SpaceX, and settling other planets or creating other settlements in the star system could be private endeavors. And if you have enough of that, then these companies effectively eventually evolve into nation states of their own because they get large enough and they have to implement some form. They want control over the money still. It's just, instead of controlled by one country, it's kind of controlled by, the BRICS leaders. But you can't have that, especially not in the age of Bitcoin or Anno Singularity or after Satoshi. It's not possible anymore because everything is going to be inferior to Bitcoin. So they'll try to launch it and they'll fail and they'll go to Bitcoin. So the really big question is really what is the interplay of US adoption of Bitcoin versus failure of a BRICS currency? Because I don't think that those BRICS countries will adopt Bitcoin as money. I don't think they see it. I don't think the leadership sees it. And they are still wound up on control. Like if you look at who the BRICS countries are, they obviously like control, right? So they're not going to just walk in. You're going to be in trouble with potential jail time and whatnot. And you see this kind of soft coercion recently with the COVID, right? Like, well, varying. There were definitely people arrested for not complying, but by and large, the control over the population was soft coercion, and peer pressure and Karens and, ratting on everyone else that's not doing what they're supposed to do. So you can see the same thing possibly happening with the institutional Bitcoin, the Bitcoin that's, in ETFs and in corporations. But I think there's always a defense to that, which is people have their own Bitcoin. And if they can move, then Bitcoin will survive because they'll move and they'll walk across the board. Irrevocably destructive now, such as like, you've heard stories like crossing a border, they want you to unlock your phone, right? What's to prevent a corrupt border officer from stealing your coins, right? Nothing. So there has to be a lot of changes, I would say, that are needed for sustainable in one day. We've kind of had traders posturizing the God candle, which is a $10,000 candle, a green candle. Both are green. A $10,000 green candle on the daily or in one day. So the Omega candle is just a larger movement in terms of Bitcoin price. And I think the reason why I was creating it was kind of also to prime people for the concept of $1 million Bitcoin. Just like with M notation, the world's going to change. After 100,000, I think everything starts to accelerate and go faster. So, post 100,000, we're not going to be watching $500 candles. Like 1,000 is already kind of normal in one day in terms of volatility. And I think the next step from that is 10 fast and ridiculous rates, but that's normal. But when you talk about Bitcoin, people are like, oh, well, that's crazy. It's not at all. So yeah, the Omega candle is just a big movement in Bitcoin price. And the interesting thing is we already see Omega candles in countries with weaker fiat currencies. Egypt, Turkey, Argentina even. It's normal. Omega candles every day.
Yeah, it's I love to look at how the charts look when they're priced in different pieces of paper.
Coins is to go to 0 too. They have one big run up and then they drop, and then they have a second run up and then they fade away into obscurity.
Yeah, I was looking at the list of altcoins that have ever made priced in Bitcoin gain against Bitcoin, and it's like, I don't know, the number is minuscule of the tens of thousands of altcoins there are. Like the likelihood of someone finding the one that does, and then actually maybe selling it in time to realize whatever headway they've made. It's a losing game. Any I guess final.
We have some really cool stuff coming out in the next year that's going to start making that a reality.
Cool. Anything that you can tease, or is it completely in the black box for now?
It's completely in the black box, but I'll let you know as soon as we have news.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, Samson.